Hello and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here for the first time, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. My name's Hannah, and on this channel I post a lot of anti-MLM content. And at the beginning of my videos, I like to link my big anti-MLM playlist here. Over 150 videos on there. Binge it to your heart's desire, but if you're really into these horror story videos, there's its own separate smaller playlist for those as well. This is the 57th video in the horror stories series, which feels almost unfathomable to me. I never imagined that we would be getting to this point when I first started these videos, but I'm so thankful for that. And with that being said, if you have your own story that you want to send in and have considered for one of these videos, the instructions for how to do that are down below. That's all my intro stuff. I'm wasting no time today. Let's get right into these stories. This story says, "Hi Hannah, I don't know if my story fits in with your channel or not, but if it helps anyone, please use it. I do prefer to remain anonymous though. I guess if anyone who was involved with this will recognize who I am still. I am a recovering alcoholic. My addiction was so bad that I ended up homeless and near death until I was invited to go to a faith-based rehabilitation center for a year. During that time, I met and spent a lot of time with women who had been in similar or worse circumstances with addiction. We bonded over our experiences and our faith. I watched so many women's lives change for the better, so many victories over addiction. While we were in rehab, one of the girls was involved with Young Living or something like it. I don't remember what it was called, but she had oils and she sold them. Being cut off from the outside world and in rehab, I had no idea that it was an MLM or that MLMs were so manipulative and insidious. I do now thanks to stumbling upon the LuLaRich documentary and your content." Fast forward a couple years and the same girl starts posting on Facebook about these gummies and teas and things that can help with weight loss. Coming out of addiction, many of the women had gained substantial amounts of weight. I was one of them. But I am always wary about weight loss supplements and magic pills, etc. Even though I was on my own weight loss journey and it was very slow, I sort of just kept scrolling by and wishing that I understood why she was selling what I assumed were scam products meant for those too desperate to realize they're being scammed. At one point, I made a comment on a post she made, which she must have taken for curiosity or interest. She private messaged me and told me that if I made a post on my own Facebook for her, that she would get me a great discount on the gummies she had posted about. 2 bottles for the price of 1. Something personally upsetting had happened recently and I was not interested in posting about weight loss supplements at that point, so I declined. A couple months later, I noticed that another one of the girls who had been in rehab with us was on an incredible weight loss journey. She was posting updates, and since I personally knew her, I knew they were real. And she was crediting the products the other girl had been talking about. Then she posted that there was going to be a 90-day challenge. And I thought, hey, if she is losing weight with the products, maybe I can lose more if I use them too. It seemed worth a shot because it was, again, 2 bottles for the price of 1. I wasn't working at the time. The cost for the gummies and taxes, my state has high ones because they don't have state income tax, and the shipping was a lot. I was living off of savings while trying to find a job. I really fought with myself about whether or not I could afford the cost, but if the girl I knew was having so much success, could I afford not to at least give it one try if I wanted to get healthy? So I messaged the first girl to ask about the 90-day challenge. During the conversation, she assured me that if I signed up through her and posted one post for her, I would get her discount. That was what she described it as, her discount, which I thought meant that she was going to give me her personal discount because she was a rep. We were friends, so that sounded like something you do for friends. I had so little knowledge of how MLMs really work. She took my credit card information while chatting about our kids and she ran it for me, which I did think was a little strange, but I trusted her. The shipment came with my 2 bottles for the price of 1, right there on the packing slip. The gummies were weird, slimy, and smelled disgusting, and if I took them as suggested on the bottle, I only had a 30-day supply, which seemed strange because she had said that it was a 90-day challenge with 2 bottles for the price of 1, so I believe that meant that I had 90 days to give them a try. I ate them as suggested and noticed no change in my weight loss. It was still going as slowly as ever with healthy calorie deficit and regular exercise I'd been doing. Well, lesson learned, I thought. I wouldn't be buying those again. Then I got an email from It Works confirming my second shipment. Okay, time to discontinue the auto ship. I figured out how to log into the site, which I could tell they really didn't want you to know how to do, and I was actually sickened with shock to see that I could not cancel my auto ship. I was locked into a 3 auto ship requirement. 1 payment was already a burden in my dwindling savings account. 2 more would have left me close to completely broke. I messaged the rep, the one that I thought was my friend, and she said that I knew exactly what I was getting into. I literally did not. 90-day challenge does not equate to 3 required purchases to me. She deliberately did not tell me that. She basically told me to call customer support, gave me their number, and said that they could cancel the auto ship for me. She never even apologized for the misunderstanding. In other words, tricking me into more than I could afford to spend or anything about the situation. And then she tried to delete the message history where we talked about it. I was able to save it before she did though, because I was furious and sick to my stomach. I contacted customer support and they told me there was nothing they could do. They had my debit card number on file and the rep had agreed to the terms for me. They were legally binding. I told them I had been tricked into it and gave them the messages. They apologized for the inconvenience but said that there was nothing they could do because there was no way to prove I hadn't agreed to the terms myself. I trusted this girl and she ripped me off by using misleading terminology and my belief that the products had been helping another friend. I didn't lose as much money as I had originally feared. I was able to change the auto ship product to something much less expensive. And soon afterward, I found a job and my financial situation had turned around. It's absolutely amazing how MLMs turn good people into people who will screw over friends for money and whatever other carrot they dangle for them. Thank you for exposing them more and more like you do. I appreciate you and your content. How terrible is it that this is like, I don't know, the 5th, 6th, 7th story on my channel of people reporting that they had somebody in an MLM use their information to sign them up for something without their consent. Sometimes people get signed up to be a rep for these companies and they don't know about it. In your case, you were signed up for an auto ship program that you did not agree to. And it's so frustrating because you shouldn't have to lie and deceive people in order to make these sales. If this was a good product with genuine results at a good price point that people actually wanted, you wouldn't have to trick them into buying it. You know what I mean? And a trend that I'm kind of noticing is that these situations tend to happen over the phone, where either the rep is kind of guiding you step by step on the website as you're putting in your own information, or you're giving them your information over the phone and having them deal with it. That seems to be a common theme I'm seeing in these stories of people who were tricked into signing up for something. So knowing that, I would urge people, if you're gonna buy something, especially something that's been promoted to you on social media, make that purchase alone, on your own time, with your own information, and make sure that you are really paying attention to what kinds of things you're signing up for, and don't let the salesperson do it for you, because apparently we can't trust them to actually do what they say they're gonna do. There's so much potential here for you to be signed up for something without your consent, and then you're stuck in that situation, and there's either no way out of it, or it's a huge mess to get yourself out of it, and nobody needs that kind of hassle. Huge red flag if someone is wanting to place an order for you on their end, because at that point they have all the power to check all the boxes that say that you know what you're signing up for, and there's no way to prove that it wasn't you checking those boxes. So I appreciate your story because you learned that lesson firsthand, and you're sharing your story so that all of us can become aware of it and protect ourselves if we are in that situation. Thank you for sending this one in. This one says, "Hi Hannah, I wanted to reach out after listening to MLM Horror Stories number 47. I remembered a story from my old job after one of the stories in number 47 mentioned targeting 17-year-olds. For context, I'm in the United States where I understand this is very against policy for most MLMs. I love your content and how educational it is while highlighting the issues with MLMs. I've been watching your videos for a long time and I'm glad because in this situation I was able to recognize what was happening almost immediately." Perfect, we love that. "I worked as a manager for a Target store in a small town. MLMs were very prevalent here as there were a lot of stay-at-home moms in town. My coworker's wife was involved with 3 different MLMs and we had a college-age gal that wore her Young Living sweatshirt constantly. But this story isn't about them. Being that it was a small town, I had a lot of teenagers on my team. Target hires 16-year-olds. My team was very close with me and loved to tell me about their experiences with upset or funny customers. One day, my employee M comes to see me. He told me a man had approached him and offered him a job. Sounds fishy, especially since M was obviously working. He had asked M to email him so they could meet up and talk about an opportunity and that he loved M's style. M told him no know that he was happy working at Target and that he was in school at the local high school, so he couldn't have two jobs. The man continued to press M, despite knowing that he was a minor and that M had said no. I was livid and told M and my team that they needed to tell me if they ever saw that man in the store again. I told them this was a total scam and not to give out any personal information. I love this, that you as the manager have this knowledge of MLMs and you're using that knowledge to protect your minor employees who are high schoolers that are underage, that are not legally allowed to be joining these MLMs, what they should be on the lookout for, and that these are scams. It makes me so happy to hear that, because these kids don't know really what they're encountering in this situation, but you do, and you're using your position as their manager to inform them and protect them. Love that. I love that so much. The second time this guy came in, he brought his wife and they went for the girls on my team. They told them they were pretty and would make great reps for their small business. All the girls that worked that night were minors working after school. I happened to be there while this couple was still in the store, and I approached them about the opportunity. At this point, I knew it was an MLM, if not something more sinister. They gave me their cards and I was able to deduce from the products they were talking about that it was most likely Amway. Amway was pretty popular in that town. I told them that they were soliciting minors, which I knew, thanks to your videos, was against their company. They apologized and said they were trying to give the kids a better opportunity to help them pay for college and the like. At this point, I was pretty angry. They were targeting kids purposely for a pyramid scheme. I told them that soliciting was against store policy and they were officially trespassing. I told them if they returned, I would be contacting the cops. The audacity of these people is just off the charts. I didn't see them after that, but I did find business cards for lip sense in my beauty department one time. So annoying. Thank you for reading my story. Please keep up all the good work you do. It's important. And you know what? Something is coming up in your story that I did not know or have ever considered before, and that's the fact that soliciting is against the store policy. And sure enough, here it is on the Target website. Our policy. Target restricts the use of its parking lots and facilities to business use only. Individuals not employed by Target or by a vendor providing services to Target are prohibited from soliciting, distributing literature, selling merchandise, or holding events at all times anywhere on Target-owned property. Thank you for bringing this to my attention, that it's against Target's policy to be pitching your MLM to customers. I did not know that. How many times have I read a story where someone was coming up to a customer in Target to pitch them? Oh my gosh, my mind is blown. And I recognize that not every store has this policy, but I feel like Target especially is such a big setting for these things to happen. I hear so many stories about Target specifically. And to know that it's against the policy to be doing that is so validating and empowering, that now, PSA, if you get pitched in Target, maybe let the manager know. Let an employee know, hey, there's this guy over here in the electronics department trying to sell people on Amway, and maybe they'll have some power to do something about that, or to look out for that person in the future, or step in just as you did here as the manager. Wow, you learn something new every day. I'm so happy to have this piece of information, and it makes me curious about other establishments. What about Walmart? That's another huge one that people get pitched in a lot. Fantastic story. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I don't know that I ever would have been made aware of Target's solicitation policy if you didn't tell me, so I am really, really thankful for this story. And again, thank you for protecting your underage employees and for looking out for them. What a great example you are for retail managers everywhere. This story says, Hannah, this MLM horror story is from the perspective of the child of an MLMer, me. You are welcome to use my name in your video. However, I will change the name of the people involved in this story out of respect and privacy for them. Before I begin, I just want to say how much I love your videos. I appreciate your authenticity, humor, perspective, and intensive research that goes into each of your stories. They are so well crafted and your content always puts me in a good mood. Everyone is so kind at the beginning of their emails, and I just want to reiterate, the compliments, the pleasantries, they are not required if you send me a story. I think it's really sweet that people do include that little segment, but I just feel the need to make it clear every so often that that is not a prerequisite that your story has to have in order for it to be considered for the videos, okay? Very sweet. I really appreciate it. Also not required. I apologize for the long story I'm about to embark on with you. I have pondered for weeks on how I was going to summarize my experiences, and I will do my best, but there are a lot of things to unpack here, so buckle up. I feel like many MLM businesses seek out vulnerable people and minorities who are in tight financial situations. However, that surprisingly wasn't the case for my parents when they became involved in them. Both of my parents, who are still together, are very well-educated upper middle class individuals. At the time they began getting into MLMs, they already had great careers that they seemed to be satisfied with. My mom worked for Pfizer as a drug rep, bringing in around $80,000 a year circa 2004, and my dad worked for the USPS as a mail sorter, bringing in around $45,000 a year and some amazing benefits. We lived a modest but comfortable life out in the country in Illinois, and financially, or as far as I was made aware, didn't have much to worry about. However, I believe it was obsessive greed that lured them into these schemes. My parents have been involved in almost every major MLM you can think of ever since I was born in 1995. They bought from them and worked for them. Tupperware, Pampered Chef, Herbalife, The Body Shop at Home, Mary Kay, Avon, Leah Sophia Jewelry, some juice one that I can't remember the name of, Prepaid Legal, now called Legal Shield, and probably a few more I may have missed, but who's counting? My mom was the one who always got into these money pits, and my dad would go along with her every single time. I vividly remember her selling Body Shop products at home starting when I was 7 years old. She would take me to all of her parties she would host and make me set up all the products, as well as prep snacks, distribute products to the attendees throughout the presentation, collect forms and payments, and tear down and clean up all of the pedicure stations. Oh, and load up the car with heavy bins full of all the product at the end of the night. I knew my mom was preparing me to be a little MLMer myself at the time, aka getting used to working for no pay, just like her, all while being forced to put a smile on my face the whole time. Fortunately for my mom, MLMing came easy since she didn't need to work on developing any type of savior complex the way many other MLMers do. You know, to justify what and how they were selling to people, even if it's completely unethical and deceiving. My mom is a straight up narcissist, so for her, she had no shame pitching to anyone, anywhere, anytime, and in any way to make a quick buck. She literally has no empathy for other people whatsoever and truly views other human beings as fiscal opportunities for her own gain. Okay, yeah, I mean, if that is your personality type, I can see how being in an MLM would come very naturally to you. You do have to make a lot of promises and do a lot of things that are socially uncomfortable and step on a lot of people for your own financial gain, so I can see how if those things are natural to you in your everyday life, that being in an MLM is probably a cakewalk. I remember overhearing her say to my dad from the other room one day about how she was planning to sell her prepaid legal membership to our neighbor. Side note, our neighbor, who I'm going to change the name of, Erica, is a married woman, mid-30s, with 2 kids the ages of my brother and I, at the time 11 and 9, and she was hardcore struggling to get by. Her husband was always in and out of work, and she didn't make much doing hair out of her house on the side. My friend and her daughter, still one of my best friends to this day, would literally scavenge food out of the neighborhood trash cans or beg her friends for dinners since her mom and dad couldn't even afford weekly groceries. Of course, my mom saw her struggle as the perfect vulnerability to target. She said to my dad, probably not realizing that I was in the other room, quote, "I don't care if Erica is poor. I'll get her to buy my membership and make her find the money for it. She's dumber than a box of rocks anyway, and she thinks we're rich and wants to be like us, so she'll do whatever I suggest. Ha, this will be an easy sale." I shook with rage and my eyes welled up with tears, trying so hard to hold my tongue. Erica had already purchased and signed up for many other MLMs my mom had sold to her in hopes that she could help her family by joining. My mom obviously had no idea what my friend or her family were going through, not that she would have even cared if she did know, but I wished so badly in that moment that I could have told my friend to tell her mom not to buy the stupid membership. However, I knew word would get back and I would get in huge trouble and probably not be allowed to ever see my friend again. Sadly, Erica did purchase the useless dumb membership from my mom and yes, got even farther into debt after that decision. What a terrible position for you as a child to have to be in, because even at that time, you probably don't fully understand what's going on, but you know enough that your mom selling this membership to your neighbor is going to be a really bad financial decision for that neighbor, and that's going to put her at risk. But as you're kind of explaining, what are you to do? I'm sure that you felt really powerless in that situation, and that's a really hard spot to be in. Hello, Zeke. How are you today? Zeke, did you know that a few weeks ago I got a comment on a video that said, "Keep the damn animals out of the room while you're filming"? Yeah, someone said that they don't like to see you in my videos. How rude is that? But I know that you have lots of people that love you, which is why I'm going to let you rub your face all over the lens. Give the people what they want, okay? There it is, the cute little snout. I'm going to give you some extra long airtime today because I know there's so many people that love to see you. Who could possibly think that seeing this cute face in a video is a bad thing? I know, it doesn't make any sense. Anyway, there's your extra long cat cameo for this video. As I aged into my teen years, my mom began taking me, against my will and to purposely indoctrinate me, to various out-of-state MLM conventions where we were forced to sit in a giant room all day with no bathroom breaks, food, or water, and listen to all the classic rags to riches sob stories of the top dogs in the company. Following their speeches would be these cringy videos the company put together of them being rich, which I always found hilarious. The most shocking and utterly disgusting part of these brainwashing conventions was listening to every single speaker yell about how, quote, if any single person, including your best friend or even family member, doesn't invest in your product, you must immediately cut them out of your life forever and never speak to them again. If they don't invest in what you're selling, they're not investing in you, and that's not love. They don't care about you at all. Even as a young, impressionable, and vulnerable teenager, all I could wonder to myself was how all of these adults could possibly believe in any of this nonsense. Even I, at 15, knew better than to buy into any of what these speakers were preaching to us. It was absurd, and the even scarier part was that these top dogs were viewed as gods by the audience and all of their followers, including my mother. Later into my teens and even young adulthood, I truly resented my parents for involving themselves in these scams. I'm very sympathetic to people who fall into these schemes unknowingly for the first or even second time around. I see how appealing they look from the inside, and the promises of them just seem too good to not give it a chance. But I never understood how my well-educated parents kept falling for them over and over and over and over again. Even as a young child, I could see so clearly that they were never going to make any money or go anywhere with it. Every one of them offered the same false hopes and dreams, and I cannot begin to explain how infuriating it was watching someone make the same mistakes over and over and not learn from them. I lost every ounce of respect I ever had for my parents because of MLMs. From their outright stupidity to keep joining them, throwing away money that could have gone toward my future, to how they manipulated and abused their downlines and potential buyers, and for the damper it put on the childhood of my sibling and I. They never showed up for any of our extracurricular events, milestone moments, etc., because they always had a meeting to attend. So much for time freedom, am I right? And the few that they did show up for, they would just turn into a pitching opportunity, which was downright embarrassing. It just proved that they didn't care about us. They just cared about their MLMs. It honestly is by the grace of God that I didn't fall victim to these horrific companies and their schemes, considering I was brought up with it since the time I was born. Somehow, the traditional brainwashing of it all didn't penetrate my mind, and I am incredibly grateful. These were just a couple of my favorite stories, but this really was a daily occurrence that plagued my life until I moved out on my 18th birthday and cut ties with the toxicity of it all. Until, oh wait, yes, there is so much more. Fast forward a few years. I'm now 21, I purchased my dream house, and I live on my own. I'm traveling the world and living my best life. I have the most rad cat who all my followers adore and have made go viral once or twice. I've been running a photography business, yes, a real, legitimate business, for almost a decade now. And I became wildly successful at what I do, which I attribute to running my business properly, treating my customers very well, and using integrity. Basically, doing everything opposite of what I was told I had to do at those brainwashing conventions in order to have a successful business. So wouldn't you believe it, when all the girls from my small town, my high school, my church, and all the typical places where Hunbots breed came running at me with crazy eyes, insert eye roll here. At this point in my life, not only was I at a classic target age to fall into an MLM trap, but I feel like because I was already successful, trusted, and well-known in my area, the Huns absolutely saw it as the perfect opportunity to use me as their downline. I have to assume they believed that with a following like mine, I could easily make them a lot of money with my connections and networking skills, and I wanted to vomit just at the thought of it. I swear, for at least 2 or 3 years straight, I had daily messages infiltrating my socials. Many of them were the oh-so-unique, "Hey hun, I was wondering if you'd be interested in becoming a boss babe like me and starting your own business," to which I would internally reply to myself, I am a real boss babe, and what the F do you think I've been doing for 10 years? I already have a business, a real freaking business that makes me real money. Of course, I would never dare say these things to them. I know better than that, and I have manners. But I have to admit that I've fantasized about it many times. Sadly, 6 years later, I still see many of them stringing themselves along in their businesses that haven't gone anywhere. They're constantly posting so many misleading, manipulative, scripted, and fake content to their socials, and it's so icky. It makes my heart break because I know they do work hard, and if they would have started their own business like me, or put that much effort into another career, then they could have been so well off with all their hard work, energy, and time they invested. But as we know, no matter how hard you work in an MLM or for how long, it will always be a dream that's out of reach. They are never going to find the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Anyway, thank you for listening to all of my stories. It's very difficult to fit a lifetime of MLM tragedies into a 4-page story. Oops, that was a lot. But I did my best, and I hope I kept you entertained at the least. I pray that these horror stories you share will reach an audience that needs to hear them and will hopefully show them that MLMs are not the way to sustainable success. Thank you for being brave and speaking out. You are a hero, and I appreciate you. With these horror story videos, though, is it me speaking out or is it you speaking out? I would argue that a lot of the heavy lifting comes from the people who send in their stories, who have experiences to share, who have lessons learned, who have something valuable to offer to this space. And I appreciate that so much because I don't know what it's like to be raised by parents who were in MLMs constantly, but you do. And you sharing those experiences through this platform is really impactful. You give a lot of examples of the harmful and damaging things that happen in MLM, such as targeting people with certain vulnerabilities, these crazy brainwashing conventions that they host, missing big life events because your MLM takes up so much of your time and your priorities, the encouragement of cutting out people in your life that don't support you in your MLM. These are things that we see and talk about all the time, but your unique position of being the child of people who are in MLMs, it puts you just one step removed from it, that you have a totally different perspective of what's going on. You're in this unique position of witnessing all of these things firsthand, but also looking at them kind of from the outside in. And I totally get what you're saying, where you're like, it's a miracle that I didn't get involved with these things considering all my experiences with them in childhood. But I would almost argue the opposite, that you were exposed to all the negative things and all the dangers of them from a really early age, and you caught on to those things a lot earlier than most people do. So you didn't have to learn it for yourself by getting involved yourself. You saw everything play out from your perspective of being one step removed from it. And because of that, you recognized early on that this is not a path that you want to go down for yourself. For example, by the time you reached kind of that prime age that people are often targeted for MLMs, you already knew for yourself, that is not something I'm getting involved in. I'm already established. I'm already on my own path. I'm confident in that decision, and I'm not going to entertain that idea of an MLM because I already know what that entails and I am not interested. So in my attempt to leave this on a more uplifting note, maybe in some way it was kind of a blessing. Maybe the silver lining is that these were some hard lessons you had to learn early on, but you are now able to protect yourself against MLMs going forward in your future. Once again, thank you for sending in your story. I'm very appreciative for the unique perspective of being the child of serial MLMers, I guess you could call them. This story says, "Hi Hannah, I recently stumbled upon your content and have been enjoying binging all the things on your channel. Thank you for what you do. I'm always impressed with how well you are able to articulate your thoughts and arguments so clearly. Thank you. I feel like I ramble a lot, so hearing that is very reassuring." As I heard other people's horror stories about different MLMs, I began to cycle through all the MLMs I've come in contact with and started to realize how prevalent they are in my area. I used to take the approach that while I don't want to be a part of one, I would buy some products from MLM distributors here and there if they interested me. But now I don't want anything to do with them. I won't be giving any more money that might support this problematic business structure. You go, girl. Like many people, I've come in contact with a wide range of MLMs and have received many "hey girl" messages. I relate to so many of the horror stories you have read, and I've seen family members fall victim to the misinformation that MLMs can spread about their products. My sister was even convinced to get off of her anxiety and depression medication by a Young Living rep because she was told that all she needed was the Joy oil blend. That is a horror story in and of itself, but I thought I would share a first-hand horror story that I had a few years ago. Please keep my name anonymous if you decide to use this for your channel. Yeah, you're right. Getting off of your mental health medication to sniff some oils is absolutely a horror story in itself. But Young Living reps will literally pitch it that way. They will convince people that that is an effective method to take care of their mental health conditions. It's insanity. Shortly after graduating college, I moved back to my hometown and was getting settled into my new job when I received a message from a guy, we will call him Kyle, who I casually dated in college. We had remained friends when things fizzled out. Kyle let me know that he had recently moved to the area and he would love to meet for coffee and catch up. I excitedly agreed because I had not seen him in a while and I thought maybe if things went well, it could turn into something more. I went to meet him at the coffee shop a few days later, and when I walked in, I saw not only Kyle, but another guy sitting with him at the table. I was a little confused because I thought we would be having a coffee date alone, but I thought maybe he ran into a friend before I arrived. Once we started talking, I quickly realized that was not the case. This other guy, let's call him Chad, was a representative of a travel MLM. I think it was World Ventures. Chad absolutely sounds like the name of a guy who would get sucked into a travel MLM. Kyle knew that I was interested in travel and had aspirations to teach overseas, and he, quote, couldn't wait to share this exciting travel and business opportunity with me. I was mortified. I thought I was going on a date and instead was suckered into an MLM sales pitch. I tried to be polite, but I was fuming. I was interested in travel, sure, but how could Kyle do this? He never mentioned anything about this being the reason for meeting up, and I was so embarrassed that I thought I was going on a date. I don't remember exactly what was said, but I do remember at one point telling Chad that I needed to do some research on the company before I considered committing to anything. He was not happy about that. He told me that when people say they are going to research, it usually means they are going to Google, and I could find all kinds of misinformation on Google. He asked why I wouldn't trust something from the direct source, him, over Google. If I wasn't completely turned off of the prospect, I sure was now. I told him that was a red flag to me, that he didn't want me to look into the company for myself, and that while I do love travel, I wouldn't commit myself to something without doing my due diligence. He told me that he would give me this bundle of CDs that are normally part of the starter pack that costs more than $100 for free, and that I could use those as my research. They tried to continue the conversation, but I was so angry and embarrassed until I finally just faked an emergency. I threw the CDs in my trunk and sped off, never talked to Kyle or Chad again. Thanks for all you do, keep fighting the good fight. I hate how common this is for people to be duped into an MLM pitch in one way or another. And I feel like it just cuts you extra deep when it's somebody from your past that you were fond of and that you were looking forward to reconnecting with. I've heard stories of this happening with like an ex-boyfriend or someone they had a crush on, a friend that they really used to be close to, because you're going into that meeting with them with some level of trust and maybe excitement to kind of get things going again. And it totally knocks the air out of you when you realize what's actually going on and the real motive behind why they asked you there. But it's this last part of your story that gets to me, of Chad being like, don't do your own research. Why would you want to go on Google? There's so much negativity on Google. You shouldn't listen to them. You should listen to me, the expert on the topic. And this is a perfect situation where I would say consider the source, remember the motive. Naturally, the person who's trying to pitch you a business opportunity is going to have only good things to say about that business opportunity, regardless of if there's a million negative things about the company out there. Huge high five to you for saying that that's a red flag to me. I'm not going to sign up for something without doing my due diligence and looking at all sides of it, and that I'm not interested until I get all of the details, the well-rounded details. That's the thing. There's two sides to every story, and of course you're going to get the positive side and only the positive side coming from the reps themselves. And in essence, that is why my channel exists, right? What my videos hopefully serve to do is provide that other side of the story, the things that they don't want you to know about or consider. And it's a huge goal of mine that if you go on Google and you type in World Ventures scam, Arbonne MLM, Plexus business opportunity, Monate pyramid scheme, whatever it is, that there will be sources that pop up for you to give you that other side of that information so that you can make a well-informed decision. Knowledge is power, and I always hope that people leave my videos with the understanding that they've received some good information that can help them make an informed decision. And your story is a fantastic reminder to just consider the source, right? If your information is coming from an MLM rep themselves consider that that information is carefully crafted and presented in a very particular way because they have the motive of getting you to sign up or buy that product. Whereas if you're watching an anti-MLM video, or you're reading a blog post, or watching a documentary, or looking at a Reddit thread, you should consider the source of those people too. Consider me as a source. What motive do I have to make this video? It doesn't affect me whatsoever if you click off of this video and you go join World Ventures anyway. That's your decision. That's the choice you've made after looking at both sides of the information. But the fact that he's saying he doesn't want you to go in search of that information on the internet because it's untrustworthy and it's going to be swaying you to that side, I agree with you. Huge red flag. He's obviously pretty confident that whatever information you're going to find on Google is going to be strong enough and compelling enough to convince you not to join World Ventures, which is exactly the reason he wants you to avoid it. So thank you for sending this story and for being a great example of how you can stand up for yourself in those moments and to stand firm in your position that, you know what, I'm going to do my own research. I'm going to look at all sides of this information and I'm going to make my own informed decision. And if that bothers you and if that's threatening to you, then that's a pretty big warning sign that what you have to offer is not legitimate. So thanks again for being a wonderful example of that. This one says, "Hi Hannah, thank you for the work that you do. I really appreciate your empathetic and logical approach to anti-MLM work. I also find your voice very soothing and calming. I have insomnia and I often listen to your videos to help me fall asleep. I have been told that on so many occasions and people are like, don't take this the wrong way, but your videos put me to sleep." And I'm like, hey, you do you, whatever works. When I was in high school, I really did not have a lot of friends, but in the after school activity I did, pretty much everyone knew each other. Within the 100 or so people that did the activity, there were definitely cliques and a popular group. I was never bullied or anything, but there were some mean girls who made it very clear if you were uncool. While I was Facebook friends with most everyone in that activity, I did not really keep in touch with many after high school. Cut to me being 22 and having finished college earlier in the year. Out of nowhere, I got a call from an unknown number and I answered it. "Hi Sarah, it's Alice." I changed the names for the story. "I'm reaching out to friends from high school to catch up. How have you been?" This was very weird. We were not friends. She was one of the mean girls and I don't remember ever giving her my phone number, but I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. I know that I changed a lot in college and maybe she did too. So I talked for a couple of minutes about my life and then I asked about hers. She gave some general updates. Then she said, "Oh, this is totally random, but I just started this new business that I think you would be really great at." This is just so random and coincidental that we're talking right now, but guess what? I have an opportunity for you. Like, come on. You ain't slick, Alice. Nice try. Now at this time, I knew nothing about MLMs. Nevertheless, I had red flags going up. She asked if we could find time for her to come over to tell me about her business. At the time, I was a very intense people pleaser. I'm better now, but it was really bad then. So even though I knew whatever she was offering did not sit right with me, I said yes. About a week later, she came over to my apartment and went through her extremely long pitch for Norwex. She was telling me how amazing these cleaning products were and how all of her family and friends were using them. Norwex? That is not a company that I expected you to say. I feel like the mean cliquey girls from high school don't get involved with Norwex. I was expecting you to say something like Monate or Arbonne or Young Living or one of the trendier MLMs these days that young people like to get involved in. Norwex, the microfiber towel MLM, is not at all what I was expecting. To her credit, she really did focus on selling the products and not the recruiting, but I'm sure that would have happened very soon. I told her I would think about it because I was uncomfortable saying no. From there, she called me a couple of times and I just never answered her call. I didn't realize how much this story stuck with me until I started watching your videos. It really bothers me that this person who was mean to me in high school thought this was okay. She took the effort to find my number, pretend she was interested in catching up, and then pitched me her scam. On another note, I had been using some Arbonne skin products for about 8 years. I did really like these products, but since I started watching your videos, I haven't felt right about using them. So at the beginning of this year, I found new non-MLM products I like and have stopped using Arbonne. Thanks for everything that you do. I'm wishing the best for you and your growing family. Thank you very much. Short and sweet story here, but what it really highlights is the fact that people who have no true relation to you or genuine interest in what you're up to in life, they always seem to pop up right when they have something to sell you, don't they? It's a very classic, almost cliche example of like the mean girl in high school who's reaching out to you because she has something to sell. We joke about that scenario all the time, but it actually literally happened to you that way. I am surprised that she went as far as finding your phone number and giving you an actual phone call. I think it's more common these days to use social media to reach out to those acquaintances you haven't seen in a long time. But I think the fact that you recall her as being one of the mean girls, the cliquey girls, one of those people who always made it feel like you weren't really welcome in their circle. How interesting is it that they can act that way in high school in a social setting, but a few years go by and now they have a money motive that they're willing to kind of put that behavior behind them, and now they're willing to act much more kind and cordial when there's money on the table for them, basically. And this kind of situation does happen a lot, not necessarily with the mean girl aspect of it, but it happens pretty frequently that these people from your past, whether that's high school, a sports team you were a part of, a part-time job you had, or whatever, they pop up later in your life to sell you something and pitch you something. I know a lot of people that this exact scenario has happened to, and I just like to remind people that if there's someone from your past who hasn't really stayed connected to you over the years and they're just kind of popping up out of nowhere for a seemingly really innocent reason, like they just want to catch up, I urge you to proceed with caution. Typically, people don't do this unless they have some kind of underlying motive behind it. In this case, selling you something for an MLM. And just remember that if these people wanted to stay connected to you and they wanted to be your friend, they would. They would make that effort. So unfortunately, when people kind of reappear after a long period of time, we have to look at that with a little bit of skepticism. And the sooner you can kind of suss out their motive, the better. And with that, my friends, that's all the stories I have for you for this MLM Horror Stories video. You know the drill. If you have your own story, check out the description box for instructions on how to send that to me. I would love to take a look at it. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you in my next one real soon.